Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. I am excited to be here with you again today as we continue learning about variables. Yesterday, I introduced us to this brand new concept of variables. And I say brand new loosely as a term. It isn't necessarily brand new to you, but this is where we learn about it the most. Okay, so yesterday I introduced you to variables. And I said that they were something in an experiment that we can pluck out, change, put back into our experiment, and it will change that experiment's outcome. Okay, now remember, as we work through our unit this week, we have two guiding questions that we want to be considerate of. One of them is what are variables, which I just discussed, and two, how do variables affect our experiments? Okay, obviously, if you change something, that will determine how your experiment plays out. Your experiment is going to be affected. Okay, it might happen differently depending on the experiment you are conducting. Might happen differently based on the variable you are playing with or changing. It kind of depends on the moment. Okay, now throughout this unit, we are going to conduct a variety of experiments with interchangeable variables. Our first experiment uses pendulums or swingers to introduce us to a different set of variables or a specific set of variables. Now, as we conduct this experiment, there are some other things we need to pay attention to as well. Our experiment has many different parts. We need to figure out which piece we're paying attention to. And in order to pay attention to one specific part, we have to keep track of how our experiment works. Okay, so we need to keep track of the information coming out of our experiment. So throughout this experiment, we're going to be keeping a record. So we need to look at how that's done. We need to look at why we're doing it. And then we need to look at which variable we're even measuring or paying attention to. Now, first, let's talk about why any of that matters. Before I tell you anything, what do you think? Why does any of that matter? Why do we need to keep track of the information coming out of our experiment? How should we do that? How are we going to do that? And what possible variables do you think could be in our experiment? Another question I have altogether is, do you know what a pendulum is? A pendulum is something that swings back and forth. Notice how my elbow isn't moving, but my arm is. In our experiment, we are going to be dangling a washer from a string off of a table. Okay? Now, there are many different ways that we can alter variables in order to get different results from this experiment. What we need to pay attention to is how we conduct our experiment and which variable we want to measure. Now, tomorrow, I'm going to show you these pendulums and we're going to get into more detail as to which variables we're going to measure and why that matters. Okay, today, for your assignment, we're going to have another discussion. I want you to tell me why you think it's important that we gather information from our experiment. Why do we need to do that? Also, what do you hope to learn from this experiment? And how are we going to keep track of certain variables? Okay, now those discussion questions will be in the discussion prompt, as well as a video about pendulums, so that you're able to understand more about what we're going to get into tomorrow. Okay, I hope that you all have a lovely day and that you enjoy whatever interesting weather is headed our way. And I will see you tomorrow. Goodbye, everyone.